Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I'm really excited today to have Jay from Data Sciences. Jay, who is the founder of Interview Query, here with us today. What I really like about his channel is that he provides quality content that focuses on actionable tips and knowledge to help others land their dream jobs of becoming data scientists. If you want to find out more, I can definitely link his YouTube channel below. And if you have any questions, feel free to add any comments in the section below. But without further ado, let's get started. So welcome, Jay. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. First off, thanks for having me on. This is pretty exciting. I love the new YouTube channel. I guess about myself. So I started out majoring in electrical engineering at University of Washington, and eventually I graduated back in 2015 and got a job in Silicon Valley as a data scientist or data analyst, actually, and wasn't really too satisfied with that job because it was more like marketing analytics. It was a startup that was kind of more or less failing, and we didn't know that until we joined. And so I decided to actually switch jobs,
Right.
got a job at this other startup, which was like 10 people, and basically had to work definitely a lot more and actually contribute to the company, right? When you're one of like 4 engineers or 4 data scientists on the team. It was really interesting just to like implement data science in production. Essentially, the company was like a Tinder for jobs app where you would swipe right to apply to a job and then swipe
Wow.
to pass on a job. And so,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So it was like a matching algorithm. So I had to develop this like matching algorithm to
Uh-huh.
match users to the jobs that they would actually like. And it was really, really interesting because you get a lot of direct feedback. You know, people are when people complain about their job matches, we could like look them up and see, what jobs we fed them and stuff. And I thought that was super interesting to really just tailor the experience for users. But eventually, actually, like 6 months after I started there, we sold the company to Monster. Let's say, like after working at Monster for 2 years, I switched over to Nextdoor, which is a neighborhood social app where you can communicate with your other neighbors, and essentially worked on the product analytics team, focusing on real estate and local businesses. And worked there for about a year before starting Interview Query, kind of just like off on my own with another co-founder. Focused mainly on preparing data scientists, data analysts, and machine learning engineers for their job interviews. And so far, it's been going pretty well. Yeah. So it's a brief but long background, I guess.
No, it's perfect. I think you covered all the, most of the questions actually that I had. So
Right.
why did you decide to pursue data science? I think you mentioned that you have computer engineering background.
Yeah. So I actually studied
What
electrical.
was it about? What was it about? Yeah, data science, I guess.
Yeah. So I was studying electrical engineering, and I had this kind of like, I actually got directly admitted into this major at UW, which was super lucky on my part because usually you have to apply for each major after you get into the system. And as a freshman or like
Mm-hmm.
sophomore, you actually have to apply to your engineering majors, and there was a super high requirement. And so I got in
Mm-hmm.
from freshman as like a direct admit, and I was like super lucky. And so I decided just to take it because my GPA was actually pretty bad after like the first 2 years. Um, and so I got in, but I realized I didn't really like it, right? Because a lot of the stuff that you have to do
Mm,
is super focused on just like electrical kind of wiring, a lot of like oscilloscopes, printed circuit boards, like very technical base level stuff in nature when you're dealing with like bits of
mm-hmm.
information. And to me, that
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit too low level, right? It's very hard to see the practical
Mm-hmm.
application when you're like in there, like soldering and like basically trying to make a light turn on or um, versus,
Right.
doing data science, and making all these like grand predictions and insights. And so I took a statistics class and actually really ended up enjoying it when I
Okay.
learned R, the programming language, and eventually
Uh-huh.
realized that
Uh-huh.
I liked, working with data, kind of like figuring out how to translate data into insights
Mm-hmm.
much more than I actually enjoyed electrical engineering at the time.
Wow. So sorry, I thought you said computer engineering, but you did say electrical engineering. So that's
They're very
actually
similar. Yeah.
fascinating because I think, yeah, I actually really, I took a stat course in college as well, and I remember like I absolutely hated it. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. I guess there is definitely a correlation between statistics and data science as well. So can you please help our viewers to understand the different types of roles in data science field?
Yeah, I mean, on an earlier note, actually, I did take a stats class earlier before that one that got me into data science, and I did terrible. I think I got like a C in it, and it was just it
Me
actually
too.
made me
Didn't
think
do
that
so well.
yeah, exactly. It made me think that I wasn't going to be in data at all. But I
Yeah,
think a lot of it is about getting that one class that actually does originally motivate you.
matter.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. But back to your original question, which I forgot. What was it again?
Uh, so can you please help our viewers to understand the different types of roles in data sciences?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so the
Yeah.
different types of roles, there's mainly, I think, three roles in data science. So you can be more of a data analyst where you're kind of like digging into
Hmm.
data and trying to find insights from
Hmm.
existing data that already is in your system, right? And so that means,
Hmm. Hmm.
let's say that someone wants to know like how many messages are sent per day on Facebook or something. Then a data analyst will go in,
Right, right.
find out the number of messages that are sent, see if this number is like good for the company or bad for the company, and then share those insights with the rest of the org, right? The second role is
Hmm.
more of like kind of the modeling side, more of the machine learning side within data science. So this means that,
Hmm.
let's say the product manager now, like given how many messages are sent on Facebook, they want to increase the number of messages sent right between two users, right? And so machine learning engineer or modeling engineer or data scientist will basically build out a system to try to increase that number of messages sent between two users. And they could do that by building out those like kind of like canned responses that you see on LinkedIn or Gmail, where it's like someone sends you a text and then you're like,
Right.
sure, or sounds good, and you can just automatically click those.
Uh-huh.
Stuff like that will
Yeah.
increase like the amount of messages sent between two users, right? And so then you
Hmm.
need someone to actually like build out models, build out prediction things, show the user like what they should actually be sending as like a canned response, or would be like a good one that would save time for the users. Um, and so yeah, and then the third role I think is more of like a data engineering role, and this is more where we're trying to collect data and we're trying to move it through the different systems in an efficient manner,
Hmm.
right? And so even before you start analyzing data, right, we need a way to collect the amount of users that sent messages from one person to another, collect like the amount of information in those messages for the data analyst to actually analyze. And so the data engineer has to work
Hmm.
on getting the data from the website all the way to like the analyst. And there's a lot of different stuff that goes on in that sort of pipeline, and that none of us really think about because Facebook is huge. All these Google, Apple, all these
Right.
companies are humongous. And so when you're talking about data collection, there's
Hmm.
like billions of events every single day, and so it's like a very, very tough engineering problem, which is why we have data engineers to work with that as well.
Wow. There's quite a bit of range. And I think in one of your videos, you mentioned that you've done all three of them, right? You've had experience with
Yeah,
all three
yeah,
roles?
definitely. I think the nice thing about a startup is that you work on like anything across the board. And so while I don't think I've done
Hmm.
something super specialized, like build engineering or architect like these systems for, these massive companies
Hmm.
like Facebook, Google, Netflix, I have done it at a smaller
Right.
scale for just our, the Jobber app, like the Tinder for Jobs app, right? And it
Hmm.
definitely was really interesting because it taught me like how you should do that for the size of the amount of users you have. And basically,
Hmm.
if you ask me how you do that for, Facebook, I would have no idea, right? But at least for something with a little bit smaller,
Yeah.
where only like,
Yeah.
10,000 people are using it per day, or like 100,000 people are using it per day, then I'd have like a better idea of how that should be built. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So thanks for sharing that. So why do companies need data scientists in your head? Do you think that demand for data scientists will continue to grow in the future?
Yeah, I do think so. It seems like we're heading to this AI revolution of sorts where
Right.
we're
Mm-hmm.
using more and more of our kind of like existing data to power the like software and like the tools of the future, right? Just because
Mm-hmm.
as we get better with technology, the technology learns from us, and you need data scientists to basically
Mm-hmm.
do that sort of learning aspect of it. There's definitely like more ethical considerations, right, when we're talking about AI in the future,
Right. Yeah.
especially for those who haven't seen like that new Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
in general, data science is definitely like part of the future because of how it integrates with all of our modern kind of lives. In this, one example of that is that just like if you're watching YouTube, data
Mm-hmm.
scientists work on providing you better recommendations for
Right.
the next video you want to watch, right?
Algorithms.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
Yeah.
ideally,
Yeah.
you do want to watch that next video, and not like telling you that they want you
Yeah.
to watch this next video. But just like stuff like that, making more personalized content is like really interesting, and I think that's kind of where
Mm-hmm.
we're headed for the future.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%, definitely. Okay, so we have a little bit more technical question from one of the subscribers, and he was asking, can you please tell us the difference between supervised versus unsupervised learning? I assume he's talking about machine learning. If you can tell us a little bit more about the difference between the two, that'd be great.
Yeah, so supervised learning, I believe, is where we build the machine learning model based off of a target, like sort of prediction, right? So let's say that we're building a YouTube recommendations algorithm, right? And we want to predict what video the next user will click on. This is like a supervised learning algorithm because we know what they're going to do, if they're going to click on the video or they won't.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to optimize for that sort of like target, right? Unsupervised
Mm-hmm.
is where we're trying to do something without that target variable. So basically, if
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to predict, let's say like the next sentence that you say out of your mouth, right? But we don't have any data for the past, things that you've said or anything that you've said, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
unsupervised learning
Mm-hmm.
is then trying to make predictions without having any like really prior knowledge of a target variable at the very end. And so we don't know what you're going to say next. If we
Mm-hmm.
like track all the things that you said previously and try to see how sentences cling together, then maybe we could
Okay.
figure it out. But for the most part, there are machine learning systems that are basically trained on all of our different people's like voices, different ways that people speak, and then they try to predict like the
Mm-hmm.
next thing that you'll say or like I'll say or something like that. So yeah,
That's really interesting. So why would we want to use unsupervised learning? Because in my head, wouldn't it be beneficial to do supervised learning most of the
yeah,
time?
supervised learning is almost always better. We do unsupervised
Right.
learning when we don't have any like training data for us to basically predict.
Oh, I see. To feed it in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I
Yeah.
see. So it's like an uncharted territory that you guys are trying to break into, I guess. So that's when it comes into play. Is
Yeah,
that right?
kind of. I think there's better examples than the one that
Okay.
I did. I think another good example is if you're trying to take like a bunch of text, right? And let's say that you have a bunch of customer
Mm-hmm.
support, emails, right? And you want to
Mm-hmm.
cluster them into like
Mm-hmm.
distinct groups, such as like
Mm-hmm.
sales or like billing or
Mm-hmm.
general support issues. And you don't want
Mm-hmm.
someone to go through and manually do it, right? Like they'll read one email,
Mm-hmm.
classify it. So you can use
Mm-hmm.
unsupervised learning to just try to group them into like different buckets based on like the words there. But because you don't have any
Oh,
prior
okay.
data of like customer
Right.
emails, you just have to do it
Right. Right.
like that with
Hmm.
unsupervised.
Interesting. Learning something new. Well, thanks for the explanation. That definitely helped. Um, so my next question is regarding whether or not you've ever worked with a business analyst or business systems analyst on a project. If so, can you please describe what that experience was like? It's because a lot of my subscribers are interested in pursuing a career in business analyst, and
Mhm.
sometimes I think there are instances, especially in project settings, where they can come together and work. So I was wondering if you've ever had that experience that you can share with us.
Yeah, I would say that I've worked with a few like operations people before, and then also just like business intelligence analysts as well, which is
Oh, okay.
on the
Hmm.
like dashboarding side, like making sure the
Right.
reporting
Visualization
exactly.
reports. Yeah.
Yeah. Business analysts, though, I think in general, from my experience, do work closer to the business side. And so because they're
Yeah. Hmm.
analysts in nature, right, they're doing all the kind of work that the kind of business heads need, right? Like, okay, let's like, can you do the
Hmm.
finances? Can you do like some of this accounting stuff? I'm sure. Can you combine that with like, can you meet with a product manager and get like target deadlines and revenue projections from them and like then create like forecasts potentially? Can you meet with the data scientists and understand like how many pull like this certain kind of data from like our database or get like this metric from the database? And so I think they're pretty cross-functional whenever I've worked with them, and it's always been a very like specific kind of need or ask. And so I think that
Right.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting field because I think that there's a lot of strategy involved, but a lot of that strategy kind
Hmm.
of permeates down to the analysts in terms of general tasks to get them like more comfortable with understanding how to like, you know, do different sort of operational things before they get to, become more of the manager that gets to like, think about the strategy for the company, right? At least that's my experience of it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no. No, it's definitely interesting because there are so many different streams of business analysts, and some are called like business analysts, some are called financial analysts, and there are specific analysts that are very much uh, involved in operation side of the business as well. But there's also other types of analysts who are more system oriented. So my background is systems analyst. So I've actually worked with with developers a lot on different types of projects in terms of gathering the requirements and understanding what are some of the changes that are needed on the system side. So yeah, definitely business analysts are working very closely with the stakeholders, the project team, and business heads or the business stakeholders to make sure that everything like runs through. So it does make sense that you've only worked with them like on specific tasks because they probably just needed to get confirmation or on the strategy or on the approach, or they just need specific numbers. So that's what they do. They go and try to gather information from different people and make sure that holistically on a project level that they're on target, that they have all the information that's needed for the business to make decisions.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. So it's great. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Do you have any tips or advice that you would like to give someone who wants to become a data scientist with no prior experience? This is one of the questions that I get often asked. I want to become a business analyst, but I don't have any prior experience. I know that you have a specific video that I watched, and you talk about some of the pointers, but just for our subscribers here, do you have any, quick 3 points that you would like to give recommendation for somebody who wants to transition into becoming a data scientist with no prior experience?
Yeah, I would say that transitioning into data science is tough because there's
Yeah. Hmm.
definitely this kind of business knowledge that you have to mix with technical knowledge, at least on the
Right.
product analytics side. And then
Hmm.
on the like more engineering side, there's this really like high bar for like understanding engineering very well to a degree so that you can
Hmm.
ease into machine learning and like doing all of that also like at a very high
Hmm.
scale, right? For like tons of these users or like at these startups basically. And so To get into data science, I think the easiest way is to honestly like break into software engineering and then pivot over to data science, because
Mm, I
then
see.
uh, it definitely makes it easier for you to understand kind of like what to kind of learn the statistics side and then just apply that to software engineering
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times. The other way that I think a lot of people should break in is also to just become like data analysts, product analysts, and just work really, really,
Mm-hmm.
um, just work on like really, really interesting projects on the job and take more and more data science
Mm-hmm.
experience from that, and then transition over to data
Right.
science as well. So I think the easiest way is almost always to like gain a little bit of experience first in like a role that's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
easier to break into, and then just on the
Mm-hmm.
job, just like really learn the skills needed and apply that to your job and just
Right.
like do the data science work while
Mm-hmm.
actually just working on your job.
Yeah. So what are some of the most common technical skill sets or programming languages that they would need to learn in order to become like a data scientist, would you say?
Yeah, I would say the best things that you can learn would be learning Python and learning SQL,
Mm-hmm.
I think. So I think both of those skills
Right.
are really, really necessary, and they kind of cover most of the ground for all the different kind of positions you want to work in, and all the different kinds of
Right.
interesting kind of like projects that you would eventually do. I think also Excel is
Mm-hmm.
actually really necessary. So Excel teaches you like all
Right.
the fundamentals of just like how
Yeah.
data can be manipulated and stored and like transformed.
Right.
And I think it's like an
Mm-hmm.
easier way to learn than maybe like SQL when you don't, because SQL is like a language in which
Mm-hmm.
you're just writing, words and then you get back data. Well, Excel, you can kind of see the
Yeah.
transformation at each step, like you can
Yeah.
go from one sheet to the next and like condense it, group by, pivot, do all those things. And so I think
Yeah.
personally, I'm not even that good at Excel. I want to get better. But usually I know what I want
Mm-hmm.
to do. I usually know what I want to do. I just can't do it because I don't know the formulas. And so then it's just like you can just go and Google it, right? But essentially, like you're building
Right.
the skill of like understanding how data can be manipulated and how it can be more
Mm-hmm.
effectively manipulated for what kind of things you want to do. And you can learn that skill with any kind of language, honestly.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you've mentioned Excel, SQL, and Python because I always tell my subscribers, because this is one of, another questions that I get asked often is,
Mhm.
what are some of the technical skill sets that I need to have to become a business analyst? And I always say, I have a little bit of SQL background because I used to be an implementation consultant. So SQL for me is important. Excel is important. Python is good to have, but you don't have to have it unless you're more, we're working as a business analyst for Amazon and you really need to, have access to database and you need to have all these like programming languages, right? But I've seen more and more job descriptions that actually say Python and SQL is like preferred or even mandatory for a business analyst. So I think it's definitely interesting to me to hear that those are the same languages that you would use as a data scientist, because I guess, it's a common language to extract information from the databases and to, I guess, play with the data, right? So,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really common now because we want to replicate a lot of the stuff that you do, right? And it's hard to do that on Excel,
mm-hmm.
at least. If you build an Excel
Yeah,
sheet for one thing, but then your boss says like, okay, I need this done for like 10 other things, like I'm sure it's like
yeah,
you could figure out a way to do it, but it wouldn't be as nice as just
yeah,
writing a script and then, basically
right.
applying that
Just
script
running it.
to
Mm-hmm.
other stuff, right? And so I agree. I think Excel is like really useful. It's like surprisingly powerful. Like people don't understand how powerful
It is.
it can
Yeah.
be. um, but
Yeah.
I think it's also kind of messy. It's like not great for scaling out basically what you want to do. If you want to do
Mm-hmm.
the same thing to 10, clients as for
Mm-hmm.
like 1,000, then you don't want like 1,000 Excel sheets lying around, right?
No, you don't. Trust me. And then once you start to have certain number of data, because I had to do some data validation, and once you get to like 25, 26,000 records, and it starts to bug out and it starts to like completely freeze on you.
Mm,
So I've definitely had some issues with Excel where it crashes or it just can't handle after a certain capacity. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely helpful to have, at least exposure to some of these programming languages, and then sort of like work on them. It's not, something that you need to have day one as a business analyst, but I, definitely am interested in also learning more about Python, because I think that's going to be something that's going to be almost like mandatory in the next few years, from what I've seen. So yeah, thanks for sharing all that. So last but not least, tell us a little bit about your interview query. What is it? How does it work? I'll also share the link to the website below so that my subscribers can check it out. But what is it about? Can you tell us a little bit about interview query and what you're up to these days?
Yeah, so Interview Query is this website that I started with a co-founder, as I described before. It started out as like a newsletter, and now it's blown into like a full-fledged course, I would say, in terms of preparing someone who is like a data analyst, machine learning engineer, data engineer, and most importantly, like a data scientist for acing their technical interview, right? I
Right.
think the biggest complaint that we get from people is that their data science interviews are so varied in terms of like what they can be asked, like what
Yeah.
they have to prepare for, so they don't know exactly how to like study for it. And so we created this kind of course plus question bank to allow users to really like learn how to understand how to approach a problem by just getting a lot of practice questions and reading solutions and learning from those solutions. And so yeah, I think like one of the interesting things that we've noticed is that, for the most part, I think learning requires like both studying and reading and then like practicing and kind of like, applying those things that you've read or like kind of learned to a problem. And so our goal is just to apply that for data science and like kind of create that content that allows that to work pretty well. I think a lot of people have also like kind of made the connection for like between as interview queries like data science, leak code for data science. And so if you or anyone of your subscribers know what leak code is, it's basically like the ultimate software engineering prep tool where you just do a bunch of practice problems and then you get good at software engineering. And so that's kind of like the goal for us.
Oh.
Yeah, is that you just do a ton of practice questions on data science, learn from your mistakes, learn on like what you did well at, and then eventually by the end of it, you should be like a pro data scientist, hopefully.
Wow. So how long does the process take when somebody, let's say like me, joins interview query? I want to become a data scientist. Like how long does that process take? Or is it only for specific people who have like interviews coming up and they just want to really like prep it and make sure that they do it really well?
Yeah, I would say it could be both. I think that if you're really diligent about learning, then you can go through a lot of practice problems and really understand data science that way. But ultimately, a lot of what you generally kind of gain in terms of experience comes from doing on-the-job training, right? And so actually applying it to real.
Right.
We're trying to abstract it like a little bit like less, like one part like less as deep, because our regular project might take a week, maybe like a month if it's like super complex, and we want our problems to take like an hour, right? Because that's how long interview questions usually take, but also because we don't want you to spend so much of your time to like tackle the problem that it takes longer than an hour to do like every morning or every evening before you go to bed, sort of thing. Our goal is to just really encapsulate these like learning objects into problems that don't take too much time, but allow you to like really upskill yourself. So yeah, I would say like it would be really tough to go from zero to like pro, with just service.
Yeah.
But I think it wouldn't hurt to just try, a few problems. You see one in the morning. We send out like a newsletter about 3 times a week. And so if you get a problem and you
Okay.
want to know how to solve it, then you can kind of just see where your litmus test is. Like, see if you understand how to solve it. If you don't know how to solve it, then yeah, definitely sign up for Interview Query and check out how we kind of approach the problem. But if not, then there are other ways to learn data science online and just like in school as well, of course.
Right. No. That sounds fantastic. So I hope that some of our subscribers go and check it out. But yeah, this pretty much sums up our Q&A session with Jay today. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wealth of knowledge in the field of data science. I've personally learned quite a bit from you, just talking to you about some of the questions that we discussed today, and I'm sure that this will inspire future data scientists to pursue their dream career. So I just really wanted to say a big thank you. And yeah, I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Suri. It was great coming on, and I think your channel is like really interesting, and I think obviously like just doing what we're doing right now is super valuable, right? Especially for what you're doing for your channel, helping people like understand general kind of career tips and also business analyst roles, and just providing knowledge on the internet. So kudos, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.